years while I was growing up, when my dad came home from work and my mom laced into him, he had threatened to walk out. But he never did it. Even after we were all out of the house, I kept waiting for him to call me and say, "I'm done." Once Stephen died, though, I assumed the trauma from that would keep them together forever. So when my dad told me over the phone that he was leaving my mom, I thought he was bluffing. But he wasn't. She had a complete mental breakdown. I can't even tell you what it was about. And he had had enough. The fact that it took 45 years was actually impressive. When I called my mom, she was in a rage. She wanted revenge, the way she did when she felt wronged by a neighbor or one of her sisters. "I want to call Dominic Barbara," she said. Dominic is one of the most powerful divorce attorneys in New York, famous for representing Mary Jo Buttafuoco, a regular on the show. "Don't call Dominic," I said. "He handles really high-profile divorces for people who have a lot of money. You guys don't have any money at all." She ignored me, looked up his number herself, and called him. Dominic called me and said, "Don't worry, I'm going to take really good care of your mother." "I wish you had told her you were too busy," I said. For some reason, I thought this would be easy. My father had decided to give my mom the house and whatever money he had in his savings account. He told me, "No matter what happens, she's still your mother. I spent most of my life with her, and I'll always care about her." How he found the strength, I have no idea, because my mom was out for blood. She wanted to go to court and get even more. As much as I tried to tell her there was nothing left to get, she didn't want to listen. When I was a kid, her rages would subside eventually. But this was different. For the first month after my dad moved out of the house, she was in a constant peak. It was as though she were banging pots 24/7. Only now I was an adult, not a 6-year-old kid at the kitchen table, afraid to speak up. I could see that she was being irrational, and I could tell her what I thought because I could escape. "Mom," I said, "you're going to go to court and have to give a lawyer a third of whatever you get, which is nothing, because there's nothing left." My father really had given her whatever he had. He was living in an apartment on Long Island with 4 other guys. He wouldn't even let me come see it. He just wanted out. When my mom realized she wasn't going to go to court, she began accusing Dominic of screwing her over. At one of their meetings, he pulled out a tape recorder and turned it on just to capture her tirades. But he did eventually get her to sign the papers. With the stroke of a pen, I was a child of divorce. That was a serious pain in the ass. Even if you're 35 years old and have your own family, dealing with parents who are no longer together is complicated, especially when they aren't talking to each other. For Jackson's 2nd birthday, we had 2 parties, one with my dad on Saturday and one with my mom on Sunday. We celebrated Easter on Saturday and Sunday too, and Christmas became a 2-day event. It was insanity. Finally, after almost a year of this, I told them I couldn't take it anymore. They needed a thaw, if for no other reason than it was making my life very difficult. They agreed to try. It helped that in 1997 my mom moved to Lantana, Florida, right near West Palm Beach, except it wasn't anything like West Palm Beach. She had bought a prefabricated house that arrived on a truck and was planted on top of a concrete slab. Mary made fun of me. "Your mom is moving into a mobile home," she said. I'd get defensive. And then one day, shortly after settling in, my mom and I were on the phone and she rushed me off. She had to get to the local motor vehicle department before it closed. Her house needed a registration sticker. You'd think having her in Florida would have made my life easier. No such luck. We were on the phone 4 nights a week. She didn't know who to pay for the gas or the mortgage or the phone, and I couldn't leave her hanging out to dry. Look, our relationship wasn't black and white. No one's is with their mother. She was still my mom. Someone had to help her. Besides, if I didn't, they would have kicked her out of her mobile home. Then she'd have to move in with me. The move did improve her relationship with my father. When she came to visit for the holidays or one of the kids' birthdays, the 2 of them got along much better. The distance seemed to mellow them both. More and more when she was back in Florida, he was the one who called to explain how to pay a bill or navigate tricky issues with the car or the house. One day in 1999, a week before Mary, the kids, and I were scheduled to go to Lantana for Easter, my father was visiting us in Connecticut. We were driving around town running errands. "I was talking to your mother," he said. "She wants me to come down." "To do what?" I asked. "To live." There was a very long pause between us. "As a couple," I finally asked, "or just to live in the same house?" My father broke out laughing. "I don't know." By the time I got down there the next week, he had moved into the mobile home. It was as if the divorce had never happened. They were back together, unmarried, and living happily ever after. I think there is something wrong with your father. It was my mother calling me from Florida. He fell. This was in November 2005. My dad was 81. "Well," I said, "he's getting old." "No," she said, "there's something going on." My mom is an alarmist, but she also has a sixth sense for knowing when something was seriously wrong with her loved ones. like the day Stephen passed away. Thanksgiving was just a few weeks away, and my parents were scheduled to visit us in Connecticut. I decided not to push for answers. If my mom was right, I'd see it for myself. After they arrived, I kept my antenna up for anything strange. My dad looked alert and strong. I chalked it up to my mom overreacting. At Christmas, they went to visit Anthony in Texas. "There's something wrong with Dad," Anthony said when he called me. "He fell." It wasn't just that he fell, he was thin. It had only been a month since I'd seen him, and now Anthony thought he looked sickly. We were worried. But getting my dad to the doctor was nearly impossible. He thought doctors were unnecessary. I couldn't recall him seeing a doctor once while I was growing up. I hadn't even seen him take a day off. When he was out of work, he still woke up early every day, put on a coat and tie, and went to hustle at flea markets. Once he moved down to Florida, rather than live off Social Security, he took a job as a concierge at a luxury building in West Palm Beach. He sat at a desk every day letting very rich people know when their packages arrived. The man did not stop. That's how you survive World War II. For several weeks, Anthony and I tag-teamed him, really beating him up about seeing someone. If it were the other way around, I told him, you'd be all over me to go. I think he knew he was sick. He didn't want to have it confirmed. But he couldn't ignore his own kids, especially when I flew down there and escorted him to an appointment. He was asked about his symptoms and if he had been a smoker. When you're that age and have been smoking as long as my dad had, doctors are inevitably looking for answers that lead to one diagnosis: cancer. They found what they were looking for after a chest x-ray, which revealed a small white spot on his lungs. It's hard to think of your parents as frail and dying, and possibly scared. My dad had been a rock my entire life, someone we clung to when my mom was swirling out of control. He had almost always kept a sense of humor, no matter what kind of abuse was being heaped on him. When she was especially unhinged, he could give me a look or make a sly comment that made me realize we were in this together. I wanted him to know that if he was sick, that was still the case. In March, a few weeks later, we met with an oncologist, a very sweet Indian man. First, he drew 2 circles on a piece of paper, which he told us represented my dad's lungs. Then he started drawing smaller circles inside the 2 lungs until they were completely filled. Our mindset since the initial diagnosis had been, expect the worst, hope for the best. Now we were getting the truth. "Those are cancer," he said, pointing to the small circles, "and it's bad." The doctor was very matter-of-fact, which I could tell my father appreciated. My father never sugar-coated the truth, and he didn't want it done for him. The doctor continued, "You could do chemotherapy, and you could do radiation, but honestly, they won't help much." In other words, my dad had been given a death sentence. The challenge wouldn't be healing and living, it would be comforting while dying. I listened, but it felt surreal, like I was watching